Hey Wargamers, welcome back to the channel, Death from Above Wargaming. I'm Aaron, and I'm back again with another Battlytics mech analysis deep dive. Tonight we're going to look at the Rabbit Coyote. This is the standard variety. If there's anything standard about a Rabbit Coyote, I don't know what it is, but this one is pretty slick. It's actually looks pretty nasty. It's got some of my favorite weapons on it, but it is a Clan 55-ton medium mech. It was built in about 3066, and one of my favorite things about it is that it has a standard fusion engine. Standard gyro, standard cockpit. It does have endosteel and ferrofibrous. It's got 163 pips of armor, 88% total coverage, which looks pretty good across the board. And this thing clocks in at 2,081 battle value. That is extremely expensive as far as my tastes go, but that is pretty reasonable in the weird world of clan mechs. So it is what it is. But it is I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it turns out. You never know with clan mechs. I will say this: some of them seem to cost a fortune and perform very well. Other ones seem to cost a fortune and suck. This one has fairly low speed, like a 5.8 is not blazing fast enough to claim that +3, but not so fast that you think all the battle value is eaten up in speed. So we'll see. Let's talk about the weapons, though. It's got an ATM-12. I don't think we've ever reviewed an ATM-equipped mech on the channel, but these things are nasty, and they're a lot of fun on the table because you can kind of decide which ammo you want to use. The most deadly is very short range, but does do 3 points of damage per missile, which, if you're good at math and you land all your missiles, that's 36 points of damage just coming out of one ATM-12. That's a lot. It's also backed up by 4 Clan medium pulse lasers. These things are phenomenal weapons. Love the modifier. Love the range on these, unlike their inner sphere counterparts, which only shoot about half as far. And this thing does have all the hand actuators, upper, lower. It's got everything going on there. So it can't arm flip or anything like that, but you can pick things up and, punch and whatnot. So let's take a look at the Rabbit Coyote. I'm curious to see how it does in terms of damage, in terms of defensive analysis, right, and that benchmark, and then efficiency. So guys, stay tuned. Rabbit Coyote's coming right up. All right, so on the offensive side here, let's start there as we tend to always do. This thing is devastation. So just baseline damage, it does 304.7 points of damage. I mean, this blows the doors off of most IS assault mechs, and this thing is only a 55 tonner. It can also build up a little bit of heat, 1 point of heat every turn once those medium pulse lasers come into range. You don't have to really worry about it though. I mean, you can fire these things for like 8 straight turns and you're still in good shape. And that, by the way, is while you are moving at a walk speed. If you run, you'll build up an extra point of heat. If you don't move, you won't build up. You'll run flat. Even if you just back off 1 pulse laser, it all disappears. So in that regard, you can optimize it for a little bit more, do a little bit more on the heat side, and get 310.5 points of damage out of this thing. That is astronomically high for a 55-ton mech. Now, in terms of lethality, it's decent. Surprisingly, it doesn't have a fast time to kill. It still takes around 10 turns to down that javelin on average, but it is doing decent number of critical hits. So 5.05 critical hits. So essentially 5 critical hits per game out of this thing. And that's because you've got the shotgun effect from those 12 missiles and also those pulse lasers. There's 4 of them, lots of gun barrels. They're hitting all over the place. So this thing will find those crits. So if you have the opportunity Let the Rabid Coyote act later in the shooting phase after some of your bigger mechs have punched holes in things. Like ideally, if you have a Warhawk in the star, the Warhawk can open up some pretty nasty holes in the mech, and this thing can find those crits, and it will do that. So nothing else really to say here about lethality or damage. It's at first blush just a devastating mech. I feel like these numbers are extremely high, but I will tell you that I did double check all of the math here in Battlytics. I mean, there's nothing fishy about it. It's just those ATMs can do a ton of damage. One point here before we move off on the ATMs, the way the engine decides which ammo to fire is really table based. It's looking at range. It's looking at average calculated damage in a specific, specific basically based on your TN. So, it's very simple with extreme to standard because standard is double extreme. So as soon as you're basically out of the long range bracket and you're into the medium range bracket for the standard, even a little bit before that, like you can start firing that ammo and it becomes equitable, becomes something that you want to do because your average calculated damage, will be higher there. When you move to the high explosive ammo, you want to wait a little bit longer. That standard ammo does get good return on investment all the way through because you're still getting 2 points per missile out of that. You get that extra point of damage once the high explosive comes into range, right? And you've sort of dipped into that medium range bracket for those HE. You really don't want to be firing the HEs at long range. You don't have a lot of them, right? They're not doing, right? You don't want to just throw them away. And plus going back up to a +4 long range penalty at 9 hex, this kind of sucks. You're better off just firing the standard ammunition until you're within that medium range bracket for that HE. So that's kind of how it does it. Anyway, we'll move on to defensive. Let's see how the Rabid Coyote does there. All right, so looking at the armor diagnostic here, pretty good distribution. We mentioned this before. I mean, it's got a little bit more on the rear, a little bit less in the front, but overall that's perfectly fine. It's just pip here, pip there. Solid across the board, really. On the mobility side, it's only got 2% on the motive hit, so really out of 100 shots, 2 of them are going to hit an actuator, blow out your foot, blow out your knee, whatever it might be. That's the number that we're looking for. We really like those low numbers. It allows the mech to, remain mobile, to keep that average target modifier up. Again, at a 5.8, you can claim a +3 when you run. So you can see the average target mod in this sim is 2.95. That's pretty good. It tails off to 2.7 after 12 turns on average. So late game, yeah, you might be hobbling, but it's really not going to be that bad. You'll still be able to move. You'll probably be down to a 4.6 profile or something along those lines. And that's if this thing's really taking substantial heat throughout the game. Survivability, very high, 87.1%. I was very, very impressed with that. Even though it does have all that onboard ammunition, there's no XL engine here. So if it does blow up that side torso, you're fine. Even if you've taken an engine hit in the CT and it takes out the side torso later, you're still fine. I mean, that's a big difference here. So the only way to really kill this thing is by coring out the center torso and knocking it out that way. Engine deaths, very, very low percent chance there. Most of the deaths are CT or head kills. But again, largely this thing is a survivor. It's tough as nails. We like to see that. That combined with high damage generally leads to a good efficiency score. But again, it's a 55-ton mech that costs 2,000 battle bytes, like 2/3 of a Stone Rhino. So is that worth it? I don't know, guys. Let's take a look at the next one. All right, here it is. Numbers are in. Bang on. Look at that. 10 exactly. That is really, really good. Actually, 10.09 to be precise. So that is phenomenal. That is a leader in its category, probably the highest clan medium we've ever reviewed. Survival rate, again, very high, meaning damage loss is very low. And that damage loss is really only happening at the tail end. And it's a decent chunk of damage. You can see where the blue separates away from the purple representing our effective average calculated damage. but still, look at all that damage under the curve once this thing gets those pulse lasers into range and it can switch the ammo over. I mean, it is absolutely devastating. So a couple of things here before we talk about threat and rolls. So first and foremost, gunnery sensitivity is a little below 0.5. You're not going to see massive return on investment here. In fact, I would even consider playing this at a gunnery 3. It looks like 2 is probably the where the inflection point happens. It's where it usually is. But what's interesting is it's a pulse heavy mech, but it still doesn't see that like negative efficiency or sensitivity happening at higher gunneries, and that's because the ATMs are really doing the bulk of the damage here. So for what it's worth, I mean, gunnery 3, I definitely wouldn't waste your time with gunnery 4 on something like this, but gunnery 3, gunnery 2, basically you're going to average about another, what is that, 60 points over 12 turns. So what is that, 5 points a turn or something along those lines? But you're spending 500 extra BV or so. Is that worth it? I don't think so. I think gunnery 3 is probably fine, but you can be the judge of that. Let's talk about threat and rolls. I have a few thoughts there that I want to share. First, we'll talk about rolls. We've got Brawler, we've got Cavalry, and I've got Vanguard. It's tough and close. It can move across the battlefield, and it can soak damage. ABC, it makes sense in all of these roles. A couple of things, though. Let's look at the threat assessment. That's what I really want to talk about. The first thing is look at the zero heat ACD. So it's very, very low out at those further range brackets. And that's because, again, you are limited in the ammo that you can use, right, until you get into 15 inches. Then you can switch over to standard ammo. Once you can get into 15 inches, that is where this mech comes alive. If you are stuck out at range, yes, the extended range ammo shoots to 27 or whatever. That's great for covering your approach. You do have 5 rounds of extended ammo, but you really should be running or sprinting to get in as close as you can with this mech. ATMs do have a minimum range penalty on their standard and their extended range ammo. As far as I am aware, unless this was errated somewhere, there is no minimum range penalty on the high explosive ammo. So don't be afraid to get up at point blank range and go wreck somebody's day. You can certainly do that. The 12-inch, 9-inch, like that's a pretty good sweet spot for this mech. If you get within 6, that's when I would make the switch over to high explosive ammunition. So that's that. Now, talking about the firing arcs, again, it does not have arm flipping capabilities. It doesn't have any rear mounted weapons. So it does have a little bit of a blind spot, but you can torso twist. And you've got 2 pulse lasers on each arm. So you can point an arm into your rear arc and you can, blow something away. Like if it's a locust or something stupid, they're not going to want to eat 2 clam pulse lasers. So, you can take care of business like that while you reposition in the following turn. So closing thoughts on this thing. I mean, the efficiency rating says it all. I didn't really know much about this mech until I did this review. And I'm actually very, very impressed with it. So I'm definitely going to consider petitioning that this is put into plastic because I don't want to buy, I don't know if I want to buy the metal one. I've been so spoiled with the plastics, I don't ever want to glue anything together again. But this is a pretty cool mech. This is definitely one that I think I would definitely consider adding to my collection and fielding, in that Ill Clan era or something along those lines. There are other variants, I think, of the Rabid Coyote out there as well that could fit in and be worth looking at. All right. So that said, speaking of miniatures, guys, head on over to Ares Games and Minis if you want to get your Rabid Coyote today. I'm sure Derek can hook you up. He's got all the best stuff, books, novels, dice, the box sets. He's got terrain from various providers, all sorts of good stuff there at Ares Games and Minis, so definitely check him out. Second, please subscribe. Please give us a like. please leave a comment. We get like thousands of views and I get like, 200 likes. Don't be lazy. Click the thumbs up, guys. Come on. Also, if you want to super like us or super thanks us, whatever it's called, down there on the bar, right next to the like button, if you want to leave a tip, you can do that. Or you can head on over to Patreon and get more involved there. There's all sorts of perks and things like that we do. We have challenges for veterans. We have special access for our regular tier. They get additional access to all of our digital tools. So some cool stuff going on there for you guys to check out. Now that said, guys, I'm all wrapped up. So I hope you enjoyed this review of the Rabid Coyote. It reminds me of the Kingfisher. Did not expect it to be this good, but there they are. Something about clan mechs with regular old engines. I love it. That's it. I'm all done. Thanks for watching. And of course, stay tuned. Always good stuff coming from Death from Above Wargaming. Have a good night.